For 25 years, I poured everything into Titan Tech. I sacrificed weekends, missed birthdays, and put the company before myself. I had no doubt that my dedication meant something, that I had secured my place. Then, one ordinary Thursday morning, I received a cold, impersonal email. Effective immediately, your position has been terminated due to restructuring. No meeting, no handshake, no thank you, just a swift dismissal. They thought I'd walk away quietly. They thought I'd accept it. They had no idea I had seen this coming. And I had been preparing. My name is Daniel Foster. I joined Titan Tech fresh out of college, eager and ambitious. I worked harder than anyone, moving from an entry-level analyst to senior vice president of technology. I built the backbone of the company's infrastructure, recruited the best minds in the industry, and created an encryption software so secure that Fortune 500 companies depended on it. For 25 years, I thought my loyalty would be rewarded. I had worked under 3 different CEOs, watching each one leave as corporate politics took its toll. But I stayed. I was the constant, the man who made things work. Then came Patrick Langley. Young, ruthless, arrogant. He was the new CEO, and from the moment he walked in, I knew he saw me as part of the old guard. He smiled to my face but excluded me from strategy meetings. He handed my projects to younger, less experienced managers. I saw the writing on the wall. "You're being pushed out, Dan," my assistant Linda said one afternoon. "You need to prepare." I already was. A month before my dismissal, an email landed in my inbox by mistake. It was from Patrick, addressed to the board of directors. "We need fresh leadership. Foster's tenure is admirable, but his methods are outdated. By Q3, I want a full transition plan in place." They weren't just firing me, they were erasing me. Most people would have panicked. I didn't. Years of working in corporate politics had taught me one thing: never be caught off guard. I had been preparing for this exact moment. While they planned my exit, I put my own plan into motion. The encryption software that powered Titan Tech's most valuable product? The patents were under my name. The internal systems they relied on daily? I had designed them so intricately that no one fully understood them except me. More importantly, I had options. Competitors had tried to poach me for years, but I had always stayed loyal. Now I started making calls. Within weeks, CipherCore, Titan Tech's biggest rival, was sitting at my table, offering me a position that Titan Tech never truly appreciated. A week before my dismissal, I signed an exclusive licensing agreement with CipherCore. Titan Tech had no idea they had just made their biggest mistake. Monday morning arrived, and Titan Tech's headquarters was in chaos. The company's top clients had seen the press release. They were livid. They demanded answers. Titan Tech's entire encryption infrastructure depended on my software. And now, without proper licensing agreements, they were legally in breach of contracts with multiple Fortune 500 companies. Patrick Langley had underestimated me. Now, he was scrambling. His first move? Damage control. He scheduled an emergency meeting with the legal team, the board, and a handful of top engineers. Except they were scrambling too. The systems were crumbling, and no one had the expertise to fix them. Linda, my former assistant, sent me a text. "Dan, they are panicking. Patrick looks like he hasn't slept. He's demanding that the engineers figure out the system, but no one understands it the way you do." I smiled at my phone before replying. They should have thought about that before pushing me out. By midweek, Titan Tech's stock had plunged. Investors were worried. Clients were furious. The board was pressuring Patrick for answers. Then, the inevitable happened. Patrick reached out to me. The email was short, formal, and full of forced politeness. "Daniel, we need to talk. I believe we can come to a mutual understanding regarding the licensing situation." I let the email sit there, unread, for hours before replying with a single line. "I'll consider it." He needed me, and he knew it. Instead of rushing to a meeting, I played my cards carefully. I arranged a call with CipherCore's executive team. They were thrilled. The more Titan Tech struggled, the stronger CipherCore's position became. "Let them sweat," my new CEO advised. "The longer they take to negotiate, the more control we have." I agreed. By Friday, Titan Tech had no choice. Patrick sent another email, this time more urgent. Daniel, please, we need to discuss this ASAP. Titan Tech is willing to make an offer. I took my time, letting him think I was debating, but in reality, I was preparing for the final blow. Titan Tech was spiraling into chaos. The resignation letters of their top engineers flooded HR's inbox, critical projects were put on hold, and customers were pulling out of contracts left and right. Titan Tech's stock continued to plummet, now down nearly 40% in a single week. The board was restless, shareholders enraged. Patrick had exhausted every avenue. Internal teams had tried reverse engineering my encryption software, but without my expertise, it was like trying to defuse a bomb blindfolded. The product updates stalled, and with every passing hour, another high-profile client defected to CipherCore. The cracks in Titan Tech's foundation were now full-blown fractures. The board had lost faith. And then, the final nail in the coffin arrived. My licensing agreement with CipherCore had not just given them my encryption system, it had made it impossible for Titan Tech to legally continue using their own core technology without negotiating directly with my new employer. It was an airtight contract, drafted by some of the most powerful legal minds in the industry. That Tuesday morning, Titan Tech's legal department made a last-ditch effort. They issued a cease and desist notice to CipherCore, claiming breach of intellectual property. It was a feeble attempt to stall the inevitable, and they knew it. CipherCore's response was swift, brutal, and decisive. By noon, their attorneys had publicly responded with a counter-lawsuit, citing Titan Tech's illegal continued use of my patented software. The press picked up the news instantly. Titan Tech faces $500 million lawsuit over stolen intellectual property. The headline was everywhere. Business analysts called it one of the most catastrophic corporate miscalculations of the decade. Investors panicked. Within 24 hours, Titan Tech's stock hit an all-time low, wiping out nearly $2 billion in market value. Patrick Langley's reputation was beyond repair. He had not only cost the company its technology, but also its credibility. The board had seen enough. The emergency board meeting lasted less than 2 hours. The decision was unanimous. Patrick Langley was fired, effective immediately. By Thursday morning, he was gone, escorted out of the building by security, his belongings packed into a single cardboard box. The golden boy of Titan Tech had been reduced to just another casualty of corporate greed. But for Titan Tech, replacing Patrick wasn't enough. The company was bleeding out. Clients no longer trusted them, investors were fleeing, and morale among employees was at an all-time low. And then came the desperate call from the new interim CEO. Daniel, the voice on the other end sounded exhausted. We need to fix this. What will it take for you to come back? I smiled, knowing this was the moment I had been waiting for. Oh, I said casually. I'm sure we can figure something out, but it's going to cost you. I agreed to meet them, but this time I walked into Titan Tech as a man in complete control. The same executives who had dismissed me without a second thought were now sitting across the table, desperate for a lifeline. Daniel, we're prepared to offer you a significant compensation package, the new CEO began, choosing his words carefully. A signing bonus, full creative control, stock options, whatever it takes to get you back on board. I leaned back in my chair. I don't think you understand, I said. I'm not interested in a job. I don't work for Titan Tech anymore. Titan Tech works for me. Silence. They knew I held all the cards. You need my software, I continued. You need my expertise, but most of all, you need my name attached to this company again if you have any hope of regaining trust. They nodded, hanging on to every word. So here's my offer, I said, sliding a document across the table. Titan Tech will license my encryption software under CipherCore. You will publicly acknowledge my contributions and issue a formal apology for how this was handled. And lastly, I pointed to the final clause in the contract. Titan Tech will pay CipherCore triple the industry standard for access to my software for the next 5 years. The CEO paled. Triple? That's non-negotiable, I cut in. This is the price for Titan Tech's survival. Take it or leave it. They had no choice. With trembling hands, the CEO signed. The deal was done. 2 days later, TitanTech issued a public statement. TitanTech is pleased to announce a renewed partnership with CipherCore and Daniel Foster, the original architect behind our security infrastructure. We recognize and deeply regret the circumstances of his departure and are committed to moving forward with transparency and integrity. The moment the statement hit the news, TitanTech's stock saw a slight recovery. It wasn't much, but it was enough to keep them afloat. For now. As for me, I had secured the ultimate victory. I had forced the company that discarded me to crawl back and beg for my help, on my terms. And Patrick Langley? He disappeared from the industry altogether. Last I heard, he was trying to start a consulting firm. No major company would touch him. His name was tarnished, his career in ruins. I walked out of that final meeting with my head high, knowing that I had done what few people ever get the chance to do. I had taken down the very empire that betrayed me and rebuilt it in my image. Checkmate. Desperation had fully set in. I watched from the sidelines as TitanTech's internal collapse accelerated. Engineers were resigning, clients were threatening to sue, and the stock price was in free fall. Patrick Langley was no longer just a worried CEO. He was a man drowning, clutching at anything to keep himself afloat. By Monday morning, the board had issued an ultimatum. Either he found a solution, or he would be removed. That same morning, I received an unexpected knock on my office door at CipherCore. Linda stood there looking a little too pleased with herself. "You have a visitor," she said. Behind her, looking haggard and utterly defeated, was Patrick Langley himself. Patrick stepped in, his suit slightly wrinkled, his eyes hollow from lack of sleep. He looked like a man who had lost everything but still clung to one last hope. "Daniel," he started, his voice unusually subdued. "I need to talk to you." I leaned back in my chair, savoring the moment. "Oh? And what could possibly be so urgent?" Patrick exhaled sharply. "TitanTech is willing to make you an offer. We'll buy out your licensing agreement with CipherCore. Name your price." I let a slow smile spread across my face. "You still don't get it, do you? It's not about money anymore, Patrick. It's about principles." His face paled. "Daniel, this company will go under. The board is threatening to fire me. I need this." I studied him for a long moment. Once he had been the arrogant CEO who dismissed me without hesitation. Now he was just another executive begging for a lifeline. "Good luck with that," I said smoothly. And just like that, I turned my back on TitanTech forever. Patrick must have made one last plea to the board, but it was useless. By Wednesday, TitanTech's board announced that Patrick Langley had been removed as CEO, effective immediately. His downfall had been swift, brutal, and entirely of his own making. But TitanTech's problems didn't end there. With no leadership and no control over the encryption software that powered their systems, their clients fled in droves. Stockholders, already furious over the company's collapse, started selling shares at a staggering rate. Within 1 month, TitanTech's stock had lost over 70% of its value. Then came the final blow. TitanTech filed for bankruptcy. The once mighty company that had dismissed me so easily was now nothing more than a cautionary tale in business school textbooks. And I had orchestrated every step of its downfall. With TitanTech officially dead, CipherCore didn't just sit back and celebrate. We moved in swiftly, absorbing their most valuable assets. The top engineers who hadn't already left were offered positions at CipherCore. Their best contracts, rewritten under our name. By the end of the acquisition, CipherCore had doubled in size overnight. And as for me, I wasn't just a man who got revenge, I was now one of the most powerful executives in the entire industry. While I rose, Patrick disappeared. The business world had no patience for failures, and no major company would touch him. Investors saw his name as poison, and his reputation was beyond repair. Rumors swirled that he was trying to start a consulting firm, but no one wanted to take advice from the man who single-handedly destroyed TitanTech. I never heard from him again. I had done what few people in corporate history had ever managed. Not only did I survive being pushed out, but I destroyed the very company that betrayed me and rebuilt something even greater in its place. And now, I wasn't just successful. I was untouchable. The business world would never forget the name Daniel Foster. With Titan Tech buried, CipherCore had become the undisputed leader in the industry. My vision had transformed the company into a technological powerhouse, and I was no longer just an executive. I was the architect of an empire. With full control over the encryption technology sector, CipherCore expanded aggressively. We didn't just absorb Titan Tech's talent, we acquired their best clients as well. Every company that once relied on Titan Tech's services now looked to us. And I ensured that CipherCore's systems weren't just better, they were leagues ahead of anything the industry had seen before. We built an infrastructure so advanced that any competitor would take years to catch up, if they ever could. The more I innovated, the more my influence grew. Soon, I wasn't just an executive, I was CipherCore's face to the world. The fall of Titan Tech and my role in CipherCore's dominance caught the attention of the business world. Industry analysts debated how one man had single-handedly shifted the balance of power in the tech industry. My name was everywhere. Daniel Foster, the man who brought down a giant. Titan Tech's downfall and how their former executive built the future. From betrayed to billionaire. How one man outplayed the corporate world. The headlines were relentless. Business magazines, tech journals, financial analysts, everyone wanted to understand how I had pulled it off. I received countless interview requests, invitations to speak at conferences, offers to write books about my journey. I declined most of them. I wasn't interested in fame. I was interested in legacy. While I thrived, Patrick Langley had become an industry ghost. His golden boy reputation was in ruins, and no major corporation wanted to touch him. But just when I thought he was finished, he made one last desperate attempt to claw his way back. A new startup had emerged, funded by unknown investors. Langley Security Solutions. It was clear what he was trying to do. He wanted to build another Titan Tech from scratch. He was attempting to revive his career, to prove he could still be relevant in an industry that had cast him aside. He made bold claims, promising a revolutionary new approach to encryption. Investors cautiously watched, unsure if they were witnessing a comeback or a dead man's last gasp. I wasn't going to wait to find out. I had learned my lesson years ago. Never give your enemies time to recover. While Patrick was trying to secure funding, I launched an industry-wide campaign. CipherCore introduced an exclusive 5-year partnership program with Fortune 500 companies. Any company that signed with us would receive cutting-edge encryption advancements at a locked-in rate. The catch? They had to commit exclusively to CipherCore. The move was ruthless, but effective. Before Langley Security Solutions could even enter the market, we had locked down every major client. Investors took notice. Confidence in Langley's comeback collapsed. Funding dried up. Within 6 months, his company was dead before it even started. Patrick never stood a chance. By the end of the year, CipherCore had acquired 3 more competing firms. I was no longer just a corporate executive. I had become one of the most powerful figures in the tech world. I wasn't just running a company, I was shaping an industry. With every move, I cemented CipherCore's position as an unshakable empire. One that no betrayal, no rival, and certainly no washed-up CEO could ever threaten again. And as I looked out from the top-floor office of CipherCore's headquarters, overlooking the city's skyline, I knew one thing. I had won. Completely. Irrevocably. Checkmate. With Patrick Langley completely erased from the tech industry and Titan Tech nothing more than a historical failure, there was nothing left to challenge CipherCore. My empire was complete, but I wasn't just satisfied with winning. I needed to ensure that my name would be remembered long after I left the boardroom. For years, my work had been overshadowed by others taking credit for my ideas. I had built a kingdom at Titan Tech, only to be tossed aside when they thought they could move forward without me. Never again. This time, everything I had built carried my name. Every encryption innovation, every major security breakthrough, every technological advancement, all tied to me. And now I had one last move to make. CipherCore was an empire, but I wanted more. The industry had given me power, but I wasn't going to stop at just cybersecurity. I had spent years watching corporate leaders make mistakes, arrogantly assuming they were untouchable. I had seen companies rise and fall, driven by greed, incompetence, or sheer recklessness. Titan Tech had made the mistake of underestimating me, and they paid for it. So I set my sights beyond tech. Using CipherCore's wealth and influence, I expanded into finance, cybersecurity consulting, and private intelligence. I built a global entity that not only protected businesses from security threats, but also advised on corporate takeovers, competitive intelligence, and crisis management. Where once I was just a tech executive, now I was a kingmaker. After years of declining interviews, I decided to do one, a single, carefully controlled interview to cement my legacy. The world had watched my journey unfold. Now they would hear it from me directly. Sitting in a dimly lit studio, the journalist, a seasoned veteran known for cutting through corporate nonsense, leaned forward. "You built CipherCore into an empire and orchestrated one of the most ruthless corporate takedowns in history," he said. "Was it revenge that fueled you?" I smiled, pausing for effect. Revenge was never the goal. Recognition was. I wanted credit for my work, for my contributions. Titan Tech thought I was replaceable. I simply proved them wrong. The journalist nodded. "But it wasn't just about proving them wrong, was it? You didn't just leave. You made sure they couldn't recover." I leaned forward slightly. "In business, you don't leave enemies standing. If you give them time, they'll regroup." I removed the threat before they could strike again. He considered my words before asking the final question. "And what's next for Daniel Foster?" I chuckled. "I've already won. The rest is just making sure no one forgets it." In the years that followed, my name became synonymous with power and strategy. Books were written about my rise, business schools analyzed my corporate maneuvers, and industry leaders sought my advice. I was no longer just an executive. I was a legend. Titan Tech was erased from history. Patrick Langley? A forgotten failure. And me? Immortalized as the man who rewrote the rules of the corporate world. As I stood at the top of the world, I realized something. I had spent my entire career building for others, only to be discarded. But now, I owned everything. And there wasn't a soul alive who could take it from me. Checkmate.